I got into my dream university in my favorite city. I had no plans about how I would make it happen. I had no plans about how I'd survive in New York, because in that moment I got in. 10 years later, at 28 years old, I got into my dream university. And this time, the letter that they sent me wasn't encouraging me to apply, was to say, welcome to this incredible institution. Welcome to your dream, essentially. So a lot of people ask me why I decided to leave it all behind. Why did I move to New York? Why did I decide to go back to school? And a lot of people have a lot of questions about how I did it. And it's been a really interesting journey that started when I was 8 years old. So my journey to getting to where I am today, or even getting to the school that I'm at today, was a long one. I remember when I was 8 years old. So let me take you back to the very beginning. I grew up in a small village in South Africa called Amasia, and I would watch wrestling a lot. And they had this thing where they would say, live from Madison Square Garden, live from this place, live from that place. I'd never traveled anywhere. I mean, if you step outside, it was a gravel road, and there wasn't really much there. But I was a big dreamer. I would dream, and I used to think I had magic powers. To be fair, I still think I do have magic powers. But I had this dream of coming to New York from the age of 6, I think. And I watched this amazing movie called The First Wives Club. And it had Diane Keaton, Goldie Hawn. I forgot the other two actresses, but I know Sarah Jessica Parker was also in it. And these women came out wearing these white suits, and they were singing a song, "You Don't Know Me," da 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 da. And I would look at them, right? And I was like, I want to be that woman, so empowered, wearing a white suit in New York. Mind you, I'd never been on a plane. I'd never been anywhere. I think at that time, I don't even think I'd gone to like one of the biggest cities in South Africa, Johannesburg. But I had a dream that I would end up there one day. Fast forward to 8-year-old me, 9-year-old me, I would have goals. I put them up on my door. I would manifest the life that I wanted, even though I thought perhaps it's not possible, but I didn't care. I was just dreaming anyway. I had the scripture on my door, Psalm 23. And I just believed that I could do anything if I put my mind to it. I would watch shows that reminded me of that. One of the shows that I would watch is a show called Passions. We've got a TV channel in South Africa, and there was Tabitha and Timmy. And Tabitha was a witch. And every time I'd watch it, it'd make me feel like I've got magic powers to do anything, right? So New York was my dream. Every time I'd throw tantrums to my mother, I remember this one time, I'm like, I will move to New York and you'll never see me again. Again, I'd never been on a plane. I'm dreaming about this place because I just believed anything was possible. You know, I believed that I would end up at Madison Square Garden, and I would speak in front of, at the time I wanted to sing in front of thousands of people. And I'd say, God, please use my voice to touch so many people. Please use me, please use me. But this was in specific context to New York. When I was 18 years old, this dream is a dream that I had my entire life. When I was 18 years old, after matric, again, never been on a plane, I had this friend who said she's going to the US to study. I'm like, that's possible? Someone from like a South African school can study in the US? Because, you know, exposure is everything. I knew the place existed, but I didn't know that you could get such opportunities, educational opportunities to be exact. And I applied to the school called Columbia University. I didn't finish the application because I'm like, one, I don't think I can get in. Two, I can't afford it. So why am I even applying? So I started the application. Halfway through, I stopped. But by that point, I had put in my address, where I live, and all of that. So they sent me a letter saying, we see that you're interested in our school. This is why you should come to our school. The only thing that excited me more than anything was the fact that the letter had the New York address where they were sending it from. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just getting this letter from a New York address. This is so cool. I kept the letter. I didn't finish my application because, I really didn't think, I always knew that everything was possible, but that just felt like a dream that wasn't possible. I didn't know that it was an Ivy League university. I think I just really liked it. It was the only university that I started an application with, to be fair. And I kept the letter. It's still in my room at my mom's house. Fast forward to 2020. I had already studied. I had a degree in philosophy, politics, and economics, and I was pursuing my postgrad. And I'd keep thinking about New York. My life was driven by, how do I get there? How do I get to this place that is calling my heart, that I feel like is meant for me? How do I do this? You know, when you just sit and you feel like you don't belong at a place. And I was the type of person who I would wake up at 3 p.m. I'm like, yeah, this is New York time. This is why I'm waking up this late. But it was something that was always at the forefront of my mind. I won Miss South Africa. Winning Miss South Africa was incredible. But I knew why I wanted to win it. It was more for the connections, not because I thought, you know, I was the prettiest girl in the room. I could barely walk in heels when I started it. But I wanted to build connections and build a life for myself that would allow me to end up in this big, grand place called New York. I did that. I got an opportunity to come to New York. I fell in love with it from the moment I got here. It felt right. It felt good. But at that time, again, I had forgotten what the end looked like for me. I think my means became my end. And the older you get, it almost feels like the dreamer sort of diminishes in you, because you have everyone around you showing you what's not possible instead of what is possible. You have everyone around you showing you, taking away the purity of your dreams. I don't know if that makes sense. Where a young 8-year-old, 6-year-old me believes that anything is possible. 25-year-old me is like, things are possible, but they come at a price, right? So the purity of our dreams almost gets diluted in the systems that we exist in, you know? You get to meet different people, but then you get to realize that, like, there are people who sometimes use those dreams to, I don't know, to bend you to their will, if that makes sense. By that I mean, it's like, okay, you know, if you just work here for X amount of time, this is where you're going to get to. If you work with us, this is where we can get you to. But what I didn't realize is that I'm believing in people instead of believing in God, who had instilled this dream in me to even begin with, you know. This dream was instilled in me by God, but I was looking elsewhere to validate that dream, to make that dream possible. And I mean, I got to New York and it was amazing. And I was like, I really need to be here. I really want to be here. But I didn't know how, because how I thought I'd get here was me singing. How I thought I'd get here was me using my voice. And I'll get to that part later of how I now use my voice differently. But yeah, and at the time I wasn't singing. I stopped singing when I was 12, 13, because I was bullied, and that sort of silenced my voice because I didn't think I was good enough. So if the vehicle that I thought would get me here is no longer here, how can I actually get here? You know, like, how can I fulfill this dream that feels like if I don't do it, I'd lead a very unhappy life? But also, I've also built a life for myself in South Africa where I'm earning good money. I can take care of myself. I've got access to things that I want, but it's still, that's not the end for me. This is not what I wanted for myself, in the sense that New York is the dream. New York has always been the dream. So how do I do it? How do I do it without being scared of being insecure? Insecure financially, insecure in the sense that I would have to take a leap of faith where I leave everything that I know to chase this dream. Because I was at a place where I was doing things I liked, but those are not the things that I wanted to do. When I prayed, the prayer that I prayed was, God, can I please get this as a means to get this? Like I said, when I got into the pageant space, I couldn't even walk in heels. I couldn't even speak in front of people. I had stage fright. I would itch and I would like sweat and I'd get really, really hot before I had to speak in front of people. And I honestly don't know how I won that competition, but I believe that when the when destiny or the grace of God locates you, or the favor of God locates you, you can't run away from it. My therapist said something to me about me not being able to be at the back of the class. So I'll get to that as well. But it was so interesting how I managed to do that. But in doing that, I felt like I got lost in the means to get to the end, where I forgot what the end looked like, because the means, they were comfortable, you know. I didn't have to stress about anything. I lived a good life. I was traveling. I was doing all these things. But you know, when you wake up and you feel like you don't have a purpose, when you get to a point where you can do things in your sleep, that's not a good place to be. I don't think it's a good place to be. Where you can do things in your sleep, where you're not challenged anymore, where you're not, I don't know, you don't get, I don't want to say get excited to wake up, but like, I could do things that take people hours in an hour. And I would wake up in the morning and I would just feel like, oh my God, what is the meaning of my life? What is my purpose? You know, I became a little bit despondent around what my end or my purpose looked like. And me being me, I decided to challenge myself. I decided to see what was out there for me. So in 2022, my mentor says to me, you should apply to Columbia. And it was so interesting because I didn't tell her that I'd tried applying when I was 18 years old, but I told her all the reasons why I couldn't make it into Columbia. Like, I told her all the reasons. Can't afford it. But more than anything, I realized that all the reasons I was giving her were driven by fear. Nothing else. Fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of leaving the comfortable and going into the unknown. Even though 6-year-old me, my inner child, knew that that's all you've ever wanted. So why are you saying no now? I visited the school and I just really loved it. But I didn't apply. Again, because of fear. I came up with every single excuse in the book. I'm like, maybe if I just do this here for a little while longer, then I'll go. But the thing is, I wasn't getting any younger. And I know dreams don't have an expiry date, but like, I knew for what I wanted to do, I need to start now. I need to start now. But I was too scared to start because things were going well. It wasn't the things that I wanted, but they were going well regardless. And then I got sick. I'd been traveling a lot. I wasn't taking care of myself. Most of the therapy sessions that I'd have them in an Uber, virtually, and I'd always be late for it. And one day, before I got sick, one day my therapist said to me, you know, in the last 4 years, you've never been still for our therapy sessions. I was like, huh. You haven't been still for our therapy sessions. You're always on the move. You're always moving. And she said to me, you know, you're always speaking to God about the things that you want, but you're never still enough for God to speak to you and respond to you. I was like, huh. But I didn't know what stillness felt like because I was scared of stillness. If I'm still enough, what if I don't like the things that I'm going to hear? If I'm still enough, what if I don't like the things that I'm going to realize about where I am at right now in life? If I'm still enough, what if I realize that I veered off the track that I was supposed to be on? If I'm still enough, what if I realize that the dreamer in me is gone? You know? What if? So I was scared of stillness. She's like, okay, I think you need to go away for like 10 days, just by yourself, no phone, anything. And then I had to tell her, I think I'm scared of what stillness looks like. I'm scared of what God will say to me. I'm scared. And that was April. I just couldn't be still. And then God forced me to be still. I got sick. I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. And when I got to the hospital, it was something life-threatening. You have all these doctors telling you how if you don't do this, if you're not still, you are going to go into organ failure. If you're not still, you're going to be in ICU for 3 months. And I had to be in a hospital room for 2 weeks. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. And I would sit there couldn't open the windows. I could see what was outside. I couldn't even feel the sun on my face. I couldn't even feel the air around me. And those are things that I took for granted because I'd lived my life on planes in those 2 years. And I just sat there and it was so quiet. A little too quiet, in fact. It was so quiet. And I was uncomfortable with the silence, but I knew that was what my body needed. It was the first time in a long time I felt like I have time to myself, but it was the first time in a long time that I had to sit with myself and face. I don't want to say face because I've lived a really blessed life, but like I had to really take stock of where I'd gotten to. Because the good, I couldn't take stock of the good. The blessings, the achievements, I couldn't take stock of any of it. You do it, you move on. You do it, you move on. But you don't even have time to be grateful. You don't even have time to show gratitude. And now I'm in this hospital. And the most important thing right now, the most precious thing at that point was my health. It was my health, and none of the achievements, none of the things that I was trying to hold on to mattered in that moment. And then I realized that, oh, wow, this is life-threatening. But God forbid in that moment I died. I wouldn't be happy with where I was leaving my life, if that makes sense. Because 8-year-old me was like, we had plans. We had a lot of plans. So it made me really think about what I wanted, because even when I was sitting there, I was thinking about like, I'm not posting. So what does that mean for my livelihood? And also telling people that you're sick is weird because they don't believe you until you post it on social media. But it felt like such a sacred and private time to me. But I couldn't believe that in all of that, all I was thinking about was my social media presence, because it was part of my livelihood. And that's when I realized that I really want to take stock of to take account of where I am right now, to take account of where I had gotten to take account for my mental health, to be fair, because I think I was just going. I was on autopilot that I didn't even realize how far off course I had gotten to. I was doing meaningful things. I was living up my purpose in some areas. But waking up every single day and not knowing what drives you is a crazy place to be, especially if you're an ambitious person, especially if you're a person who had plans, because I used to write down goals. But in the last 2 years before last year, I stopped writing down my goals, because again, the purity of my dreams, the belief I had in my dreams was gone, because I would think of everything that would go wrong before I would think of everything that could go right. In scripture, I would live by Jeremiah 29 verse 11. It would speak about how the plans I have for you are to prosper you, right? But when you get to a place where you can't say to God, let your will be done, because you don't know what his will look like. It was such an interesting time for me, because I had to take a step back to rearrange my priorities, to really think about what the end looks like for me, to acknowledge that I had turned my means into my end. But I was deeply unhappy. I was deeply unsatisfied with my life. So, again, Kenya is such an interesting place. I was in Kenya with a friend of mine, Daisy, and we started speaking about the dreams that we have. And one big dream, again, New York, one big dream, again, was a desire to learn, was a desire to grow. I love learning, I love growing, I love reading, but I didn't even have time to read properly anymore. And this was in October. Applications close in Feb. I tell her that this has been my dream. She's like, apply. I'll help you. Apply. And I decided to apply. I didn't think I'd get in. This time I actually finished my application. And yeah, I applied for it. And because I decided to do it so last minute, because if I decided that it's October, it's too last minute, I'll do it next year, I knew that I wasn't going to do it. So I just decided to apply anyway. I had to get a tutor at the time. I had opened 2 new businesses. I was busier than ever. I was barely sleeping. But if I let those things distract me from this one thing, I was never going to get it done. And I applied, and when I applied, I got in. I got into my dream university in my favorite city. I had no plans about how I would make it happen. I had no plans about how I'd survive in New York, because in that moment I got in. 10 years later, at 28 years old, I got into my dream university. And this time, the letter that they sent me wasn't encouraging me to apply, was to say, welcome to this incredible institution. Welcome to your dream, essentially. Years later, at 28 years old, I got into my dream university. And this time, the letter that they sent me wasn't encouraging me to apply, was to say, welcome to this incredible institution. Welcome to your dream, essentially. And it was interesting. I actually want to acknowledge that. I got into my dream university. I don't want to just jump over that. I got into my dream university. I get to live in my dream city. I get to learn every single day. And I get to listen to music and actually enjoy it. I get to have a routine. I get to wake up every single day and realize that I'm actually living in a prayer I prayed when I was 8 years old. I want to acknowledge that. I'm living in a prayer that I prayed when I was 8 years old. The dream that I had in the village, in the middle of nowhere, actually happened. I didn't have a plan when I had the dream, but I'm actually living in it right now. And the most beautiful thing was what my therapist told me actually came true. I'm also still enough to hear God's voice. I'm still enough to hear my own thoughts. I'm still enough to sit down and enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm still enough to listen to music. And by that I mean I would listen to music all the time. But you know, when you're listening to music and you get to close your eyes and you get to really just listen to it and feel the sun on your face as you listen to it, I get to be still enough to hear God. And in terms of how I did it, I'd say it's by grace. Every single day is by grace. It's not easy at all, because, again, the other side of it is actually existing in the dream, where I was telling my therapist that this is so difficult, it's such a huge shift. I'm lonely, it's hard, I miss working, I miss making money, I miss doing this, I miss doing that. And then she said, this uncomfortability is exactly where you need to be. This is exactly where you need to be. And you need to get to a place where you're comfortable with knowing that everything will be okay, that grace will be sufficient, that the universe is working in your favor, because you tend to gravitate to everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could potentially go right. And if you see where you are right now, if you acknowledge where you are right now, you'll realize that you're living in everything that could go right. So why is it that you still gravitate to everything that could go wrong when the universe, when God has shown you everything that could go right? And I reflect on that a lot, because there's times where this is where gratitude comes in. There's times where you're looking at everything that could go wrong without taking stock of where you are in your life. You've got your dream job, dream university, dream house, or whatever. But then you're so focused on the challenges that you don't acknowledge the fact that you actually have these things. So I would sit with her just complaining. So she was talking about changing my cognitive behavior, which is a topic for another day. But it has these challenges. But I think what it's been teaching me is to lean more not on my own understanding, but on a greater understanding. Not on my own abilities, because by my own abilities, I don't think I would have been here. Because 6-year-old me, 8-year-old me who was watching First Wives Club, dreamt about it, but she didn't really know how it would happen, because sometimes you don't really understand how the mechanics of how your manifestation will come into being. You just believe that it's going to work anyway. But it's not easy. I mean, changing the way you think is not easy when you've been through stuff, when you've gone through certain traumas. I know it's easier said than done. But yeah, I think this season is a season of gratitude, season of looking everything that could go right instead of everything that could go wrong. It's a season of being still enough to hear God, but it's also a season of seeing how far you've come before you decide that you can't get to a certain place, or you don't have a plan to get to a certain place. I know it's easier said than done for different situations, for different people. But as I sit here, I'm actually realizing that, like, bro, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan at 8 years old, but at 28, 20 years later, God answered my prayers. 20 years later, I get to live in my dream city. Half the time I don't have plans. I know a lot of people on TikTok are asking me, how did you do this? I've worked really hard. I need to acknowledge that. I've worked really hard. I have a deep desire to learn. But one thing that I'm realizing is that the dreamer in me is coming back. The dreamer in me who dreams without a plan and then says, I'll figure it out later, she's coming back. My family calls me Abby. Abby is coming back. And I'm so excited to see what that looks like. It's not without its challenges. I've got videos of myself crying. Some days I'm just like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I came back to New York 2 days ago and it was so cold. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so miserable. So I want to start changing the conversations I have with myself as well. I'm not saying that things are easy. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that things will always be easy, but I'm just grateful that I at least get to say things are not always easy whilst in my dream. You get me? Like, yeah, I can't say how I did it in terms of like the different specifics or how I survive, and the different specifics. That will be like a different topic, because every single day I'm still figuring it out. Every single day I'm still... I'm still working on believing in myself. Despite everything that's happened, I'm still working on believing in myself. And also being okay with that vulnerability, but also acknowledging my ego sometimes when things happen, and acknowledging my entitlement at times. Because I think we want things to be easy because we think we're entitled to things being easy. But no one said it was going to be easy. No one. Not even in scripture, by the way, if you are a believer. Not even in scripture does it say that things are going to be easy. But what it does say is, I will never forsake you. So, yeah, please continue to manifest, continue to dream, and stop asking or stop trying to see why it can't work. And maybe even with that 10% in you, focus on why it can. Thank you.